The Kingdom of Liberis. This country is the home to many famous knights and adventurers who have been strangely rumored. Heroes who wrote their names in history were said to have trained under a certain man. They called him a sword saint from a small countryside. An expensive carriage rides leisurely along a country road. Turning to his mistress, the cabman reported that they would be arriving shortly. Thanking him, the white-haired girl looked out the window and indulged in nostalgia. Meanwhile, somewhere in a rural dojo, opening the door, the old man stepped inside and looked sadly at his son. He asked Beryl if it was so necessary to practice in the morning even on a day off. In fact, he would do well to consider being a good son for once and giving his father a grandson. After listening to the old man's grumblings, Beryl reminded him that after he took over the dojo, he had even more disciples. Hadn't he already become a good son? However, that wasn't enough for father. Since Beryl was so busy teaching, why didn't he look for a wife among his students? But he wasn't sure anyone would want to be related to a swordsman from the middle of nowhere. The dojo was no place for flirting anyway. Every swordsman in this country aspires to be a knight or adventurer. Beryl had been training with a sword since he was a child. He had the same goal as everyone else. He dreamed that one day he would go to the city and save many people with his sword. In the end, he became a self-defense teacher somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Well, it's all right. It's a vocation befitting a man like him. Find a soulmate among the disciples? As funny as it may sound. If you think about it, there was one girl who promised to marry the sensei when she grew up. While the man was thinking about it, a white-haired girl suddenly entered the dojo. Apologizing for the disturbance, she greeted sensei. Seeing the unexpected guest on the doorstep, Beryl immediately recognized her as his former disciple, Arliusia. It's been a long time and she's changed a lot. But sensei himself hadn't changed at all since then, as his student noticed when they sat down at the table. Looking at how Arliusia had grown, the coach could hardly hold back tears of pride. The leader of the Knights of Liberis, Arlucia Citrus, is a living legend leading the kingdom's elite troops. She was once Beryl's apprentice. She was incredibly talented back then, and had learned her sensei's sword-wielding style by watching and imitating. And after 4 years, Beryl had nothing more to teach her. When she left the dojo, he gave her the sword as a parting gift. Noticing that she still carried that sword with her, Beryl wondered why she didn't buy something better in town. However, Arliusia thinks this blade is perfect for her. By the way, since she came here, she must have some business with her sensei. It goes like this. Arliusia revealed that she is actually both the leader of the knights and the fencing instructor for the group. The instructor is responsible for training the knights and leading the name. Being the instructor of the Knights of Liberis is like being the best swordsman in the kingdom. For Beryl to have an apprentice become a knight instructor is something. He's so proud. But Arliusia didn't come here just to tell you that. What she really wanted to tell Sensei was that she had recommended him as a special instructor. His candidacy was endorsed almost immediately. In other words, the Liberis Knight Order wants Beryl to be their coach. Hearing those words, Beryl fell into a stupor. The royal instructor of the Liberis Knights is the best swordsman of the kingdom. So why is such a position being offered to him? Arliusia in turn warned Sensei that there was a carriage waiting for them outside. Now Beryl needs to go to the capital to make adjustments to the Knights training program. No refusal is accepted, as Arliusia is acting under imperial decree. Besides, she had purposely come to see Sensei on his day off so that he would have no excuse not to go to town. A short time later, Valtrain, capital of the Kingdom of Liberis, the official garrison of the Knights of Liberis, introducing Beryl Gardinant to her apprentices. Arliusia announced to them that from now on, he would work with the Knights of Liberis and become their special instructor. At the same time, Beryl himself could not believe his eyes. There were more than 100 people standing in front of him. Looking at them, he realized that everyone here was quite experienced. Also, Beryl Gardinant is much stronger than me, so please train well with him, Arliusia added, shocking her sensei. Turning to the teacher, the girl asked him to say a few words. The man hadn't expected such a sneak from his favorite student. Why would she say something like that? He's just a middle-aged guy. What could someone like him say to this crowd of experienced knights, already sitting in the carriage with his disciple? Beryl asked her if it would be enough for him to visit the city only a few times a month. The girl confirmed this, explaining that since her master still had many apprentices, it would be enough for the knights of the kingdom to have him visit them from time to time. Be that as it may, Beryl still wasn't sure if these knights needed guidance from him. After stopping at the market, Sensei and his student went to pick out souvenirs for Beryl's father. During their walk, the master noticed that they were attracting undue attention. However, it was expected. The head of the knights in the company of some middle-aged man could not help but arouse curiosity. Also realizing what it looked like from the outside, Arliusia could barely contain a smile, happy to have a date with Sensei. Who would have thought that the head of the royal knights would be shopping with a man? An unfamiliar voice was heard, attracting the attention of the two of them. Looking at Arliusia with a smirk, the warrior woman noticed that she had gone all soft. Throwing a suspicious glance at Sundara, the white-haired girl asked what she needed. Realizing that the two knew each other, Beryl examined the stranger and noticed the plate of the Black Adventurers Guild on her chest. That means she's a strong adventurer. As soon as he realized this, Sundara grabbed him by the shoulders and asked Beryl Sensei what he was doing here. There could be no mistake. This woman is his former student, Serena. Pleased that her teacher remembered her even after 20 years, the red-haired adventuress squeezed his shoulders even tighter. 20 years ago, Beryl took orphan Serena to the dojo. He trained her for about 3 years, after which a family adopted her. While Beryl gasped at his disciple's iron grip, Arleusia yelled for Sundara to get her hands off the teacher, explaining that he was very busy right now. The relationship between the two girls was apparently not very friendly. Sundara offered to show her the city and the Adventurers Guild at the first opportunity, but Arleusia stopped her intentions, explaining that the teacher was walking with her. And anyway, he would be going home soon anyway. As the two argued amongst themselves, this sight began to attract even more attention from the surrounding people. On that day, who could never figure out who that middle-aged man walking along with the most famous girls of the kingdom was. When the visitors entered the store, the blacksmith greeted Citrus-sama and Sundar-sama. Greeting the vendor as well, Arleusia explained to him that she had come here to show her teacher the establishment. As they chatted amongst themselves, Beryl looked at his students with pride. Everywhere they went, people showed them respect. They had truly become strong women. Then, after looking around the store's assortment, the man noticed that there were some pretty good swords here. Sensei took one of the specimens in his hands, and the blacksmith who saw it offered him to try the blade in practice. Within a couple minutes, Beryl was already standing in front of the simulator with sword in hand. Both of his female students were already anticipating seeing their teacher masterfully use the sword again. Even with a sharp blade, you'll still have to make an effort to cut the fish's backbone. Invented in the East, the makiwara is a training device for practicing blows that imitates the density of the human body. Not every blade can cut it, and more often they just bend. Today was a rather tiring day for Beryl. However, the sword in his hands is pretty good, and so to get the desired results, a man needs to focus. Standing in a fighting stance, Beryl swung his blade, and with just one blow, he cut Makiwara in half. The two girls didn't expect any other result from their sensei. Even the blacksmith was amazed at this man's skills. He is without a doubt at the height of swordsmanship. They left the store without buying anything. Beryl simply forgot to bring the money with him. As their disappointed teacher walked to the carriage, Sundara approached Arleusia and asked if she thought there was something wrong with that sword. The blacksmith also noticed something amiss when he picked up this weapon. Running into the forge, the man angrily asked his assistant fools which one of them had put that blade up for sale. The sword was still unfinished and completely blunt. And since this weapon was not usable, it meant only one thing. Sword Saint from a small countryside is still going strong. In the evening of the same day, Beryl traveled by wagon back home. Undoubtedly, becoming an instructor of the knightly order is a huge step forward in his career. But despite this, the man still feels that he should never have been entrusted with such a role. If he screws up, it's not just him that's in trouble, it's Arleusia. Anyway, right now Beryl was too exhausted to think about it, so he decided to reflect upon his arrival home. However, as soon as he returned, his father reported unexpected news to him from the doorstep. From that day forward, he no longer waits for his son at his house. Father wouldn't even let Beryl sleep over. I sent him back to town. Arleusia, who met him there, asked the master perplexedly why he had been thrown out of the house so suddenly. Awkwardly scratching the back of his head, Beryl recounted what had happened last night. When he arrived home, he was met by his father and a former student and his wife. Landred had become a famous adventurer, and Beryl was very happy to see him for the first time in years. Landred told Sensei that he had a baby, and so he decided to retire and take care of his family. Beryl congratulated the happy parents and asked what they planned to do next. That's when the father interrupted his son, explaining that this was exactly what they were going to talk to him about. The old man appointed Landred as manager of the dojo, and made his feckless son haul his arse back to the capital and do his duty. As a result, his father forbade Beryl from coming home until he found a wife. "God, I'm so damn lucky," Arleusia whispered quietly. Beryl perplexedly asked her what she had said, in response to which the girl embarrassedly mouthed that she meant that it was a terrible situation. Well, right now Sensei needed to find a place to sleep, and so Arleusia was the only one he could turn to about it. Realizing that this was her chance, the girl offered the master to stay at her house. Beryl, who was having a panic attack, only said that a small hotel would be fine for him. The two of them went to the Adventurers Guild building. Since he's looking for a place to stay, this is the best place to get the information he needs. As soon as Beryl and his student entered the building, they were spotted by Sundara. Running up to the teacher, the surprised girl asked him if he hadn't come home yesterday. After confirming this, Sensei told him that there had been some kind of force majeure that had caused him to come here to ask Serena for help. Sitting down with the student at the table, the man recounted what had happened. Luckily, Serena knows the city well, and so she quickly found some cheap places. On the map, she showed an inn not far from the guild, and suggested that the teacher settle there. Though that place is pretty safe, Alyosha didn't agree with that option. Poking her finger at the map, the white-haired girl explained that since Sensei was now living in the capital, he would be visiting the knights often, and so he should live closer to Alyosha's house. The argument was getting more heated by the second. So much tension hung in the air that it was clear a fight could not be avoided. The two girls exchanged barbs before abruptly falling silent and placing their hands on the hilt of their swords. In a moment, they were about to draw their blades from their sheaths and clash in a fierce battle. Suddenly, both girls felt an inexplicable pressure. Looking at their hands where the sword should have been, they found that there was nothing there. Turning their heads, they saw the phantom figure of their sensei taking away their figurative swords. With his authority alone, he suppressed the students' desire to fight each other. In reality, nothing was happening for Beryl. He just sat at the table and watched his students frozen in place. Sighing, Sandera suggested to her opponent to consider it a draw. Still, the teacher interrupted even faster than they had time to start. Still not sure what they were talking about, Beryl awkwardly averted his gaze and mentally noted that he thought for a moment that they had drawn their blades. Toward evening, they still managed to find a suitable residence for the master. Opening the door, the innkeeper showed Beryl his new room. The room was much better than the man could have expected. The barracks and the guild are a bit far away, but the market and the blacksmith shop are nearby. The place is nice, but Alyosha still looked a little annoyed for some reason. That night, Beryl spent alone with a bottle of ale. After emptying another mug of alcohol, he slammed his fist on the table in frustration and cried out at what a disgrace he was. He became a night instructor and also got this nice room. All thanks to his students. He's such a miserable old man. What does Alyosha expect him to do? The next day at the official garrison, Alyosha asked the teacher if something was bothering him. Beryl only said that everything was fine. First of all, the leader of the knights took Sensei to the training room. At that time, there was just another sparring session going on. Bringing his sword behind his shoulder, the blond man made a lightning-fast 360-degree turn in a leap. With one powerful blow, he chopped his opponent's wooden sword in half. While his sparring partner stared perplexed at the broken weapon, the blonde called out to the next one. That kind of force of blow stunned even Beryl. They could kill each other like that. Stepping forward, Alyosha announced to the knights that Beryl Sensei would be their instructor from today. Few of the knights were happy with this decision. They trusted their commander, but they still doubted that they had anything to learn from this old man. Beryl didn't expect any other reaction. He immediately felt their angry looks on him. He was clearly not welcome here. Suddenly, one of the people present raised his hand and called out to the teacher. A golden-haired girl with a huge bow exclaimed that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Beryl quickly recognized his apprentice, Kuluni. The girl was very happy to see them, as was Sensei himself. As he approached her, Beryl enthusiastically remarked that she had become a true knight. The embarrassed girl said that she still had room to grow, but she was very happy that Sensei would be teaching her again. After all, she had only been able to go to the dojo for about 2 years. Pride in her students took over Beryl. Noticing that their teacher had burst into tears for some reason, the girls asked what was wrong. Beryl can no longer afford to depend on her students. It's time to muster up some courage. He's a regular middle-aged guy, but he's a man first and foremost. While Alyosha was reprimanding Kuluni for talking during practice, one of the knights approached them. It was the same blond man whose sparring caught Beryl's eye when he came to the training room. In fact, that spinning cut made Sensei remember this guy. The boy introduced himself as the vice commander of the knightly order, Hembrit's Drought. Since yesterday, Beryl had felt this guy's unusually intense gaze on her. It all makes sense now. He's out for blood. Beryl Gardnant's blood. Hembrit's narrated that Liberus was very proud of his knighthood. And so, since Beryl has become the new instructor here, in order for him to stay, he must be a very skilled swordsman. Even though the commander herself recommended him, Hembrit still wants to fight the new instructor. It is his duty to see if Master Beryl is worthy of the honor the Emperor himself has bestowed upon him. Finally, it's time for Sensei. All will be able to see the light of his sword. The Order of Chivalry is known for being the strongest in the kingdom. It is made up of only the best warriors in the kingdom. After joining, they undergo rigorous training. It is said that one knight of Liberus is comparable to the strength of 10 warriors of other kingdoms. Vice Commander Hembritz is without a doubt one of the best swordsmen in this kingdom. Beryl still can't understand how it came to the point where such a man challenged him to a duel. If he refuses now, no doubt the new students will doubt him even more. On the other hand, if this kid defeats him, it will do even more damage. But worst of all, if he got Alyosha in trouble here, in that case, only she could help him avoid this fight now. But as much as Beryl hoped that the girl would try to dissuade them from fighting, she, on the contrary, felt that this was the perfect opportunity for the teacher to show off her skills. As a result, the man still had to spar with the vice commander. Everyone was in anticipation of the spectacle. Thanks to his apprentice, Beryl had lost his last hope of avoiding a fight. Kaluni took a moment to notice that this would be the first time she would see the teacher fighting someone. When the girl asked the commander if it would be all right, Arlucia asked her why she doubted it. Then Kaluni reminded them that their vice commander had inhuman strength. He killed an enraged bull with one blow of his wooden sword, and there were several people who broke their arms trying to block his blows. Promising the girl that everything would be fine, Arlucia advised her to watch their fight closely. When he heard that an instructor recommended by the Commander Dono herself was coming to visit, Hembritz was delighted. He was called Sword Saint from a small countryside, so he hoped to ask him for some tips on swordsmanship. But when he saw some middle-aged guy in front of him who looked like a dead fish, he became suspicious. Commander Dono is a very kind girl, so if her teacher asked her to recommend him as an instructor, she wouldn't be able to refuse him. Of course, Hembritz accepts the fact that he could be wrong, but he's not going to deny that this dude might be trying to sneak into the knighthood for some personal nefarious reasons. Just by looking at his opponent's face, Beryl felt an incredible thirst for blood. Does he really want to finish him off right here? Well, now the man has to focus and try not to lose in an embarrassing way. Displaying his sword in front of him, Beryl immediately caught the trick. At the same moment, Hembritz felt incredible pressure coming from his opponent. The seemingly ridiculous and insecure Beryl became strikingly calm and focused. In just a second, Arlucia Citrus announced the start of the bout. Hembritz tore towards his opponent, expecting to make a lightning-fast stabbing strike. Further movement initiated by Beryl was of such speed that neither Hembritz nor those watching the battle could see the progress of events. But after a while everyone saw how exactly the aggressive lunge of the vice commander ended. Beryl put the blonde boy in front of him on his knee and placed the blade of a wooden sword against his neck. Fencing sparring goes to 5 touches, and so the vice commander still had a chance to score. No one, including Kaluni, managed to even see what happened. The only one who discerned the teacher's movements was Arlucia. As soon as she signaled, Hembritz immediately rushed into action. In the beginning, he aimed for the teacher's throat, but it was just a hoax. He instantly made a horizontal kick at Sensei's exposed torso. The master parried it with his sword. This caused Hembritz to lose his balance. The teacher then retaliated by putting his sword to his neck. Here's how it happened. What is most striking is that he did all of this literally in the blink of an eye. While the commander was explaining this to Kaluni, Hembritz had already launched another attack. Beryl, grabbing the sword with both hands, blocked the blow. Then, nudging his opponent's weapon, he slid his sword across the blade and slammed the hilt into the blonde boy's jaw. In fact, Beryl was about to stop the hilt in front of the knight's face, but didn't keep up with the speed of the movement. Still looking intently at the boy, he asked if he was okay. Arlucia never once doubted her sensei's abilities. A major factor in her teacher's unrivaled strength is those eyes. A close look at your opponent's breathing, his steps, center of gravity, grip, and fencing style. Those eyes can pick up even the tiniest gap the size of the eye of a needle. It's an all-seeing sword honed to the extreme. Without much trouble, Beryl achieved a 3rd touch in their sparring session. Compared to him, even the vice commander of the Night Order looked helpless. In a real battle, he would have died 3 times in that time. However, he wasn't going to give up so easily. It's time to show off his unique technique. The first time he used this technique, even the Commander Dono couldn't see his movements. This technique he nicknamed the Vice Commander's spinning cut. During this hold, he hides his hands behind his back, so it's hard for his opponent to know what's coming next. Standing on one leg, he holds his other hand behind the hilt. Next, his sword accelerates thanks to centrifugal force and Hembritz's superior muscles. With this, he is able to completely destroy the enemy's defenses. But unfortunately for him, Beryl wasn't the type to fall for such tricks. Taking advantage of the vulnerability of this technique, he went behind his opponent's back without much trouble and disarmed him with another touch to the back of the head. That was essentially the end of the fight. Dodging the Vice Commander's best technique, Beryl finally proved his skill. He's a true professional. Vice Commander Hembritz is a pitiful person. He could have been commander of the Order of Knights if it weren't for Arlucia. Having once again defeated the blonde boy, Arlucia asked him if he found anything strange when they fought. Agreeing with her, Hembritz narrated that when she fights with her, it feels like they are looking in different directions. He had always wondered why the commander had decided to become a knight. Once again crossing arms with Beryl, Hembritz was plowed to the ground without a chance. During this sparring session, the boy realized why the commander respected his teacher so much. Even though at first glance he may seem like an ordinary middle-aged guy from the middle of nowhere, he is actually the greatest swordsman. The 5th touch was recorded and the bout was stopped. The previously distrustful knight stood and applauded the new instructor. Raising her hand, Arlucia said that was enough of a demonstration. That evening the knights went to the nearest tavern. In honor of Teacher Beryl's appointment as instructor, Kuluni read a toast. After that, everyone at the table clinked their beer mugs together. To Master Barrel's surprise, Alyosha turned out to be an avid drinker. In just a few sips, she was the very first to empty the mug of ale. Immediately afterward, the girl started eating kebab, and so she alternated kebabs along with mugs of beer one after the other. Looking at this performance, Barrel asks the student if she should order another mug of ale. While an embarrassed Alyosha tried to string words together, Kuluni told Sensei that the leader had always been good with alcohol. Barrel himself could not believe his happiness. Who would have thought that the day would come when he would be drinking with his students? Thinking about it, the man suddenly noticed that the ale in his mug had run out. Alyosha tried to suggest that the master pour some. However, ahead of her, Hembritz himself held out the bottle to Barrel Dono. While Barrel apologized for the fact that they had to throw such a banquet for him, Alyosha looked at the vice commander with envy. She wants to pour booze for the teacher, too. A lot of people wanted to thank Barrel today, including Hembritz himself, and the boy also wants to apologize to the instructor. Suddenly slamming his mug of beer on the table, Hembritz shrieked that Barrel Dono had made an incredible impression on him. He feels very ashamed of himself for not believing the master right away. Alyosha laughed, but only agreed that Hembritz was too hot-tempered. She had told him at once that the teacher was much stronger than she was, and he hadn't believed her. The drunk girl then asked the teacher what he thought of Hembritz after sparring with him. The man agreed that the boy was quite strong, and his arms had a power that went beyond human. That spinning technique on one leg turned out to be pretty good. If Barrel decided to take that punch in the forehead, it would probably break his sword. Also, Barrel thinks he'd lose if he missed even one punch. So he had no choice but to dodge the spinning technique and get close in his opponent's back. What Hembritz needs to realize now is that there is a gap in his technique. During its execution, the enemy can easily fall into a blind spot by simply following the direction of rotation. After listening to the master, Hembritz rose from the table and bowed his head before him. Turning to Master Barrel, the vice commander said that the knights needed him. He asked Sensei to be their regular instructor. Even the strongest knights are mostly young and unsure of their path. All Barrel had to do was not fool himself, and accept the fact that his experience and skills could indeed be of use to these people. And even when Sensei said he looked forward to working with them, Hembritz replied that it was like a dream to him. He can't believe that the sword saint from a small countryside is standing right in front of him. After these words, the blond boy knocked over another mug of ale, leaving Barrel puzzled. The celebration continued for several more hours. Soon a disappointed Alyosha left the tavern and sat down on a bench in the park. She ended up getting drunk in front of the teacher. Now he probably thinks she's vulgar. She may have let her guard down too much because her plans are going well. Then at the table, Barrel said that a deflected blow could be dodged, as if it were easy to do. The first time Hembritz used this technique during a duel, Alyosha was able to dodge, but it cost her her practice sword. Her sensei is brilliant as always. Sitting on the bench, the girl remembered the day her teacher had given her the sword as a parting gift. She was taken aback when Barrel said he had nothing more to teach. The girl disagreed with his conclusions, as she was convinced that she was not yet capable of approaching his skill. However, Sensei only told her that she was overestimating him. She's a great swordswoman, and so Barrel didn't want her to keep wasting her time in a dojo that's out in the middle of nowhere. Alyosha couldn't believe her teacher saw herself that way. Why does he have such a low opinion of himself? I mean, he's an incredible person. And that day, the girl had a plan. It became her life's purpose. The very next year, she went to be selected for the Order of Knights. The first was a written exam, in which she safely took first place. It couldn't help but attract the attention of high-ranking people. Looking at the new girl, they were surprised that she was going to enter the order at such a young age. She wasn't even allowed to drink alcohol back then. In the practical exam, the future knights had to fight one-on-one among themselves, and then those who were chosen had to duel with the instructor. Going into battle with her first opponent, Alyosha expected to see a battle not for life, but for death. However, the opponent completely failed to live up to her expectations. He was moving too slowly. People said all of these candidates were incredible, but they weren't the only ones who were weak. Even the instructors from the order were easily defeated on the first day of the exam. Previously unknown to anyone, Alyosha Citrus defeated the strongest knight in the kingdom at a young age. That's when the girl realized that none of them could compare to her teacher. As a result, Alyosha Citrus, having set a new record on the entrance exam and proven herself to be an incredible knight, was immediately accepted into the order, becoming the youngest commander. She was later offered the role of instructor. The emperor was certain that no one but her was suitable for the role. Alyosha had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. She gladly accepted the emperor's offer. However, the girl also narrated that there is someone more suited for the role than her. The reason she became a knight was because she wanted to prepare a scene for the teacher. You'd think it was too much, that she's a bossy and selfish woman. She's sorry, but she doesn't have ambition like the other knights. Just thinking about the fact that no one will ever know her sensei's true skill, Alyosha feels her heart grow heavy. From now on, the journey of Swordmaster Beryl is just beginning. He must usher in a new era, and in the near future he'll get rid of that ridiculous nickname. The Sword Saint from a small countryside? No. He would indeed be called the Saint of the Sword. But for now, the first thing Beryl has to deal with is the hangover that awaits him the next morning. Somewhere in the royal library, two female voices are heard. Sitting on the couch, the blonde-haired girl asked Thistle if she had heard that the vice-commander of the knights had been defeated in a duel, and he fought not with the commander, but with the new instructor. He is, I believe, called the master of the countryside. Hearing this from her blonde-haired friend, Thistle suddenly froze. The girl decided to clarify if she was talking about a sword saint from a small countryside. After receiving an affirmative answer, she realized that Beryl Sensei had come to the capital. A few days later, Beryl went to the shopping district in the western part of the city. It was full of stores, so he could find something to his liking. Also, there's a lot of fighting here, so there are knights on patrol 24 hours a day. Sitting in the same carriage with Kuluni, the man asked if she really didn't mind him traveling with her. In response, the enthusiastic girl asked him not to worry and to rely on her. A couple hours ago, the knights were just finishing up another training session. Kuluni asked her teacher if he had gotten used to the city. However, Sensei said that he had hardly ever gone anywhere because he came to train the knights every day. Then Hembritz told the master that there were quite a few popular places in the capital that Beryl should certainly visit. This was what prompted Kuluni to invite the teacher to walk with her around the city during her tour of duty. First of all, they went to the biggest market. Beryl would have liked to buy something interesting, but his eyes were scattered because there were too many stores. He didn't even know which one to start with. Meanwhile, Kuluni had already begun to try on outfits and show them to the master. While Beryl was admiring her appearance, a strange person in a black cloak approached him. When the stranger addressed the master by name, Kuluni immediately recognized her as her friend. "Long time no see." The stranger spoke with a satisfied smile, throwing Beryl into a stupor. Looking into her face, the man asked if they knew each other. The long silence that followed that question made the hooded girl hurt with every second. It was then that the sword hanging from the stranger's belt caught Beryl's eye. It helped that he recognized this girl as another of his students, Thistle. Taking off her hood, the girl burst into tears because Sensei didn't recognize her right away. And while Beryl apologizes to her, I'll tell you who she is. Thistle was a very quiet child. She rarely socialized with other children, and Beryl often saw her practicing sword strokes alone. After she mastered all the techniques and Beryl gave her the sword, she promised him to move on as a farewell. Running up to Fischan, Kuluni offered to go sightseeing with them. When the girl agreed, Beryl asked her what she was doing in town. Striking a proud pose, Thistle revealed that she was considered a master in the magic division. It means she can use magic, and so Fischan really wants her teacher to praise her. Magic division. All its members are exclusively mages, but they are quite rare in this world. As well as the Knights of Liberus, they help to keep power in the kingdom. Beryl thought that this girl would continue to further learn the way of the sword, but since she went down the path of magic, it could mean he trained another incredible child. Entering one of the stores, Thistle told the teacher about magic gear. They are accessories that are imbued with magic. For example, this ring is capable of creating a small flame. Also, apparently this store even sells cursed items, like this earring. Hearing the girl's mutterings, the saleswoman was surprised that she had managed to find something like this. It had been a long time since anyone had found a cursed item here. And when Thistle said she would buy the item, the saleswoman let her pick it up for free. Beryl asked if Thistle would be all right if she carried the thing around with her. The girl in turn explained that the curse would not activate until all its conditions were met, and she wasn't going to wear the necklace. The reasons for the curse can be different. Bloodlust. Some people create them on purpose to make mages look bad. There are still people in this world who have a negative attitude towards magic. And for this reason, Thistle decided to give the teacher a little gift. She gave him a peace of mind bracelet. Obviously, Beryl gets very tired during training, and so with this bracelet he will recover much faster during sleep. In exchange, Thistle only wants Sensei to tell people that magic only exists in this world to help them. Also, the girl has the exact same bracelet. Once again, barely holding back tears of pride. Beryl promised that next time he would get her something too. At the same time, there were cries for help. Thieves robbed a woman in broad daylight. The criminals turned out to be two, and so it is almost impossible to catch up with them alone. While Beryl thought about what he should do, Thistle said she would do everything herself and asked the teacher to just watch. The very next second, she drew her sword from its sheath. This surprised Beryl. Why would she need a sword? Wasn't she going to use magic? But soon all of Sensei's questions were answered. Standing in a fighting stance, Thistle began to concentrate powerful streams of mana throughout the blade of her weapon. A moment later, she had already swung her sword, aiming an energy projectile at the target. The first offender didn't even have time to realize anything. With a devastating magic spell, he was knocked down and immediately lost consciousness. Beryl had never seen anything like this before. That dude just flew a few meters away from that kind of power. So this is Fissel's magic? Noticing that his partner had been caught, the second thief tisk-tisked irritably and ran off into the back alley. Kaluni quickly reported it to her friend. Then Fissel decided to show her teacher what else magic could do. Pointing her sword blade at the ground, she used an energy push with which she soared into the sky. Very quickly catching up with the second thief, the girl struck her target with a swing of her sword from afar. Finished with her work, she put the sword back into its scabbard. Kaluni promised to take care of the rest. Watching his apprentice carry two huge men alone, Beryl tried to understand if all the knights in the order had such inhuman strength. Meanwhile, walking up to Sensei, Fissel sweetly asked him if he had seen it. She told the interested master that she was enhancing her blade with magic. Her commander said she was the best at it. It really is an incredible technique. No matter how long your sword is, your attack will reach its target from any distance. Who knew that Fissel would be able to enhance Beryl's sword techniques in this way? He now wished he could meet her magic teacher. Fissel was trained by her division commander. She too would love to meet the one who gave her student such amazing swordsmanship skills. In some ways, these two are very alike. Evening came. After Fissel put this bracelet on him, Beryl's shoulders stopped hurting. One of his students is a commander of the order, another an incredible mage. Who knew they could all rise so high up the career ladder? These thoughts kept Beryl on his toes. To bring himself to his senses, the man slapped his hands on his cheeks. He should not think of his students in that way. He should praise them for putting in so much effort and achieving all this. He, on the other hand, is the opposite. He hasn't achieved anything in this life. He's just a regular old man. A sudden flash interrupted these gloomy reflections of Beryl's. As the man stopped, he saw flames in front of him, falling from somewhere in the sky. Such a sight threw the master into a state of bewilderment. Already in the next second, the flame particle had grown. The silhouette of a mysterious creature emerged from the firestorm. Not knowing what to expect from this strange apparition, Beryl got into a battle stance. At the same moment, the fiery creature swung its hand. The flaming bird rushed towards Beryl at a tremendous speed. Though he tried to block the attack, the fire caught his clothes, and so he had to drop his robe. Besides, such a move helped distract the enemy briefly. Instantly reducing the distance with his opponent, Beryl severed his head. However, as expected, a creature made entirely of fire could not die from physical attacks. It only meant that there was a caster nearby who was using magic. Several more explosions rang out in one of the city's alleys. Dodging each of them, Beryl tried to cut down the fire creature time after time. The flame puppet was made of magic, and so no matter how much he chopped it, it was useless. In that case, Beryl made the decision to lead the enemy away from this place. Fissel had recently told him that long-distance spells were not very effective. It would exhaust the mage, and the power of the spell itself would be rather weak. Therefore, it was best to use a bow and arrow. To force the caster out, Beryl found a large vacant lot. Whoever's controlling this puppet must be close by. There's definitely no place for him to hide. Soon the person attacking him appeared in front of Sensei. With a smirk as she descended the stairs, the blonde-haired girl remarked that he was a rather daring man for forcing her out of hiding. Seeing a child as Beryl's spellcaster was definitely not something he expected. The stranger was not going to tolerate such an attitude to herself. Angry, she shouted not to call her a child, and asked the man if he had not been taught to respect his elders. After he was able to escape from her magic, the girl said that she believed that he was able to defeat the Roaring Blade. He's that sword saint from a small countryside, isn't he? Beryl in turn asked who the Roaring Blade was. As it turns out, it was about Hembritz-kun. Clenching her fist, the blonde-haired girl said that she had her own reasons for meeting Beryl. She came for his life. Her words quickly made Beryl realize that this crazy woman was not to be trifled with. However, something is clearly wrong here. As the man suddenly looked her over from head to toe, he saw something terrible. On this girl's forearm hung a bracelet familiar to him. Noticing the strange expression on Beryl's face, the girl also looked at her forearm. Then she blurted out a gloating smile. The psychotic woman explained that she had taken this bracelet from a girl. She turned out to be quite an interesting specimen, having used a sword while being a mage. What's wrong with it? Why did this legendary sword saint from the backwater get angry when he saw this trinket? Looking at this mad woman with hatred, Beryl angrily asked where that girl was. "You have such a beautiful face right now," the psychotic woman muttered with a mad grin. Well, to find out the answer to that question, he'd have to try to get her to talk. The stranger immediately launched dozens of ice swords at the man, all of which he managed to dodge. In just a moment, a huge ice ball had formed above Beryl's head. He grabbed his sword with both hands, jumped aside, and chopped the projectile flying at him in half. But suddenly, a quick bolt of lightning flew out from the ice shards. The psychotic woman was sure she had succeeded in straightening the man out. It hit his blind spot, and so he had no chance to dodge. To her regret, she had underestimated the skills of the holy sword. From this mesmerizing battle, the petite blonde-haired girl began to enjoy herself. Without much effort, she continued to chase Beryl around the arena, launching ice arrows at him one after another. The man never had a chance to get close to her. She uses too many different spells. At this rate, he'd have to defend himself all the time, and he'd be exhausted. But on the other hand, she won't be able to use magic all the time either, as it too must have its limit. Now the question is, who will be the first to tire? They were facing a battle of attrition, and this psychopath was willing to accept such conditions, especially since she's not done yet. She had one more trick left in store that her opponent definitely wouldn't like. Summoning a water phantom, the girl directed it towards the ground. At the same instant, powerful water streams rushed at Beryl. He stabbed his sword into the ground and struggled to stay on his feet. Water filled the entire arena. Things had taken a decidedly bad turn for Beryl, screaming that he wasn't going anywhere now. The psychopath touched the water with her fingers. In the next instant, Beryl's feet were bound in ice. Afterward, the stranger offered the man another attempt to fight her fire puppet. Only this time it will take a slightly different shape. Gathering the fiery energy in one place, the girl closed it in her palms. When she opened her palms, Beryl saw a fiery blob of mana. With a wave of her hand, the psychotic woman threw this clot of mana directly at the man. Right now, she was really curious. If a sword saint could survive something like this. Within seconds, the sound of a deafening explosion echoed throughout the capital. When water comes in direct contact with another substance at extremely high temperatures, it instantly boils and a phreatic eruption occurs. Oops, I think under the influence of an epic moment, the psycho accidentally overreacted. But even with that in mind, a blast like that wasn't enough to finish him off. Beryl took advantage of the raised smokescreen and came close to the enemy. She had been too presumptuous, and so she would pay for it. This attack was very close to finish off Beryl. If he delayed even a moment, he would be fried. Fortunately, the man managed to break the ice beneath his feet with his sword. Stabbing his sword into a block of ice, he picked it up and used it as a shield. Such ingenuity amused the psychopath even more. Standing in front of Beryl, she spread her arms out to the sides as if beckoning him over to her. However, Beryl himself had already noticed something wrong here. Abruptly pushing himself off the ice, he tore in the opposite direction from his opponent. As he landed, he looked at the girl shocked. What was wrong with her? If she continued to attack him, he would definitely lose to her. As suddenly, interrupting his musings, the girl sighed heavily. She offered to end this circus. Since he could survive even that, she certainly couldn't do anything against him. It went exactly as Fissel said it would. In fact, the psycho turned out to be the one who taught her magic. The girl introduced herself by the name of Lucy Diamond. She's the commander of the magic division, the strongest mage in the kingdom. Lucy had recently used this spell for the first time. It was deemed too dangerous, so she was forbidden to use it for training. It's the same as always. Even this spell was never to see the light of day. Lucy Diamond despaired at the mere realization of that. She only used it today because Fizz said her sensei would be able to resist that magic, and that idea clearly didn't appeal to Beryl. Looking at the girl disdainfully, he asked what the hell she was doing all this for. Lucy Diamond explained that she thought Beryl wouldn't take her seriously otherwise. She also agrees that using Fissel as leverage against him was too much. At the same time, people ran up to their makeshift arena and noticed that the place was frozen for some reason. After telling Beryl that this ice would soon melt because it was created by magic, Lucy suggested that he get the hell out of here. The next morning came. Having come to train the knights again, Beryl met an unexpected guest. Fissel decided to visit him today. Thanking the apprentice for that bracelet, the man asked what business she had come here on. Then the girl told him that the magic division was creating potions, and she had come here to deliver them. Beryl had already seen some knights using them. Seeing the boxes in the student's hands, Sensei offered her his help. However, he didn't have the strength to carry such a heavy weight. The thing is, Fissel usually uses magic to carry them. On the way to the warehouse, Beryl wondered if that kid was really a magic division commander. Fissel in turn revealed that Commander Lucy had used magic to stop her body from aging, and so no one knows exactly how old she really is. Even though she looks like a child, she is without a doubt the most powerful mage in the world. Lucy Diamond knows about every kind of magic on the continent. You could say she's the embodiment of magic itself. That's why the state controls her. Well, the chances of Beryl meeting her again are extremely slim, which he's glad about. The last time they met, he was lucky to be alive. Leaving the crates behind, the man made his way with Fissel to Arliusha's office and ran into a man he clearly didn't want to see again. Sitting at the table with the commander of the Order of Knights, Lucy greeted Fissel. Arliusha Citrus praised the girl for her work. The black-ranked adventuress, Serena Sundera, sitting next to them excitedly greeted the teacher. Not only did he have to see that psycho again, and this meeting of the three of them looks very suspicious. Maybe he should get out of here. But there was no chance of him getting away. Lucy noticed his timing. They were just talking about him. Lucy asked Beryl to sit next to her, but the man only quietly refused and took a seat farther away. Meanwhile, looking at the Magic Division commander, Alyosha and Sandera wondered how they knew each other. What the hell is going on here? Maybe he did something wrong. Sandera began her speech. She told me that she had come here to ask Sensei for a favor. She wanted to ask for a teacher's help to train the new adventurers. There is a group of rookie adventurers who have recently taken a mission to conquer a dungeon. On the adventurer side, they should be accompanied by someone with a platinum rank or higher. But right now, the guild didn't have enough people, so currently, Sandera was the only one who could do it. Although she had said earlier that one experienced adventurer should suffice, one problem had arisen. There is a chance that they will encounter an unknown monster. There's also a request from the Magic Division to investigate this dungeon. They say that some mysterious magical power emanates from it as well. The chance of the adventurers stumbling upon an unknown monster was slim, but the guild still decided to send 2 experienced adventurers on this mission just in case. So Sandera wants to ask the master to go with her. To her surprise, Sensei quickly agreed. Beryl asked Alyosha if he could leave the training area for a while, to which she replied that it would be no problem. Still, Beryl isn't entirely sure he can be of much use in the dungeon. Thanking the teacher, Sandera suggested we meet at the guild and discuss it all further. Lucy in turn also suggested that Fisk go to the guild with her. There they will be able to see something interesting. Left alone with the teacher, Alyosha said that she hadn't expected him to agree. It was a bit unexpected. Scratching the back of his head, Beryl admitted that he might have said no before. But after Alyosha asked him to become an instructor, he regained his confidence. It's all thanks to her. Embarrassed, the girl turned away and asked her sensei to take care and wished him a happy journey. Adventurers. Individuals who are members of the Adventurers Guild, and whose powers are not limited by national borders. Traveling the world on guild requests is a dream job. Requests range from finding missing items to slaying monsters. Adventurers are divided into classes based on their strength and abilities. The class determines how important tasks they can take on. The highest rank is Black. Its holder is capable of defending an entire country. There is such a person in the Kingdom of Liberia, and it is Serena Sundera, a Black rank holder. 20 years ago, Beryl found her near the riverbank and decided to take her in. It seems they were attacked, and she was the only one to survive. In the beginning, she was very much afraid of him. She couldn't even remember her own name. But on the same day, the girl suddenly walked up to the sensei and told him her name. My name is Serena. At first, Beryl couldn't believe his ears, but a second later, tears came flooding out of his eyes. She's not that scared little girl anymore. Now she's a famous hero. Would Beryl continue to let her pay for her own place? By the way, Landred was of platinum rank. It seems he reached great heights, after which he decided to retire. A short while later, the Adventurers Guild building. The door to the study opened, and the old man behind the desk greeted the guests. He introduced himself as the Guildmaster of the Liberis branch, Nidus. Standing next to him was his assistant, Migan. And for some reason, this dude was staring suspiciously at Beryl. Taking a seat at the same table as the guest, Nidus said they had heard about him from Serena and Lucy Dono. Well, since even the Magic Division commander spoke so well of him, he would definitely be able to help them. However, Migan asked the Guildmaster not to rush into a decision. Despite the commendable recommendations, the assistant still didn't agree with letting an unfamiliar person go into the dungeon with the adventurers. And the problem isn't even that he doesn't trust Serena's teacher. His concern is that he could be seriously injured or even die. In an adventurer's guild, the most important thing is trust. Let's imagine they let a civilian enter the dungeon, and he died there. After that, rumors would spread, and no matter if they were true or not, the guild would still lose people's trust. Explaining this, Migan asked Gardeniant Sama if he had any experience fighting in dungeons. Beryl in turn replied that he had indeed been in one once. This has piqued the interest of everyone here. Migan decided to clarify what had happened there. Beryl then revealed that after not defeating a single monster, he ran towards the exit. In the end, he never went near that dungeon again because he was scared. When Lucy heard this, she asked the man if he was a child. If it's like Beryl said, then he's just a newcomer. Therefore, he wasn't sure if the guild should trust such a person with the lives of their people. Angered by such a decision, Serena said that a teacher is not someone who dies so easily. And while Beryl was mentally asking them not to fight over him, Lucy's voice came from beside his ear. The girl had implied that in such a case, Sensei just needed to demonstrate mastery of at least the platinum rank. And if he's on the same level as a black rank, surely neither the guildmaster nor his assistant would mind. It took some more time for everyone here to realize the essence of this idea. The guildmaster was the first to figure out how they could organize it. Soon, the battle between the double dragon blade and the mysterious man was about to begin. The people gathered around began to place bets on the participants. As usual, the meeting with Lucy didn't end well for Beryl. She even managed to talk the assistant into the fight. Serena herself was also glad for the opportunity to fight her teacher. The perpetrators of this spectacle in turn seated themselves at the table and prepared to watch. Seated next to the commander, Thistle finally realized what she meant when she said they would see something interesting. It turns out she expected this outcome from the start. Well, it's not that Megan's against it. I mean, they just want to gauge this man's strength. He even found himself wondering how this guy would fight against a black rank. The highest rank an adventurer could reach was Ocean. These were the words Beryl heard. Many people joined the guild with the hope of reaching him, but no one thought of reaching black. Because if you have a black rank, it means you're no longer human. Out of the entire crowd of onlookers, only one person bet on an unknown middle-aged guy. There was no way this buffoonery was keeping Beryl focused. Compared to his other students, that's not to mention Kuluni, who is often missing somewhere, or Arliusia, who is too busy to come to practice. Exactly, there can be no mistake. Compared to all of them, Serena is on a completely different level. The bout was nearing its start. Everyone was in anticipation of incredible fun. When the start of the battle was announced, Serena ran to press, preparing to smash Sensei with a sidekick to the ribs. This girl had gotten noticeably faster since their last encounter. Putting his sword out, Beryl blocked the first blow. This was followed by a swing of a second sword, which the man dodged. If she were a normal person, her series of attacks would have ended there. But inexplicably for Sensei, the girl delivered another blow in a U-turn, which he dodged, practically close to the ground. At first, it may have seemed like she was using the three-punch technique from a movement completion stance. Logically, the third swing of the sword should have been the final one. However, Serena wasn't going to stop. She continued to attack Sensei without giving him a chance to counterattack. The sight of a fierce Serena had the spectators well entertained. It was obvious that this sparring was going to be tough for this guy. Sandera is not an easy fighter, as she uses as many as 2 swords. A few years ago, a dragon appeared from the western side of Liberia, but the knights were too far away. The guild had no choice but to declare an emergency mission to destroy this dragon. Back then, they didn't know what incredible ability this dragon possessed. He had the skill to instantly heal any wound. Even the adventurers who set out, including the ocean ranks, could not match it. The new species was later named the Immortal Dragon. Serena Sandera had a platinum ranking at the time, but she became the one who could still defeat this dragon. With incredible speed, she struck blow after blow, and the dragon simply did not have time to recover and eventually weakened from blood loss. Sandera's greatest weapon is her incredible stamina. To replace her damaged sword, paired blades were forged from the claw of an immortal dragon and named Twin Dragons. Meanwhile, the speed of Sandera's attacks kept increasing. Beryl had no chance to attack back. The only thing he could do now was defend himself against her relentless lunges. Watching this fierce fight, Megan asked Miss Diamond if there was a possibility that Sandera was holding back. Replying that she looked serious, Lucy decided to check with Fist to see what she thought about it. After receiving exactly the same response, Lucy asked the assistant guildmaster if he thought Sandera wanted to intentionally lose to make her teacher look good. Megan in turn explained that he simply did not rule out the possibility. In fact, he himself knows that this woman is not the type to do something so trivial. The longer this battle lasted, the more people wanted to stop it. This old man has already shown what he can do. If he didn't finish it now, he might die. At the same time, Serena herself was once again convinced that her teacher was indeed an incredible person. No one but him was capable of withstanding her attacks. That was why Sandera was so hopeful that Sensei wouldn't lose to her. She won't hold back because she wants the teacher to outdo the real her. Soon, the moment came when Beryl was finally able to slow down the pace of Serena's attack. After another swing, he blocked his opponent's blade as close to the hilt as possible. Beryl then made a sharp turn of his sword, twisting Sandera's arm into an awkward position. As a result, the girl's palm unclenched, and the weapon flew out of her hand high into the sky. A similar technique is called kuzushi, and is used in martial arts. It refers to the process of throwing an opponent off balance. However, Beryl came up with his own interpretation of this technique. He called it konoha kuzushi, or translated as crushing leaf. His technique destroys the opponent's stance and disarms him at the same time. Now that Serena was left with only one sword, Beryl had a chance to go on the counterattack. But as he struck the first blow, he unclenched one of his palms for some reason. Left holding the sword with one hand, he swept his opponent's weapon aside in a sharp motion. In the very next second, the man grabbed the blade that had flown out of Sandera's hand moments earlier. No one in the audience could have expected such a development. An ordinary, middle-aged, unknown man from a small countryside defeated the black-ranked adventurer Sandera by pinning her to the ground and holding a blade to her throat, taking the sword away from his apprentice's throat. Beryl proudly mouthed that she had become much stronger. But as Sandera herself pointed out, she still has a long way to go. When the man held out his hand to the student to help her up, the bleachers howled. The guy who dared to make the only bet on an unknown man made the biggest score of his life. Megan rose from the table, and Guildmaster Nidus inquired what was the matter. In response, the assistant revealed that he wanted to call the newcomers to meet Garden Sama. Admiring the fight she saw, Lucy asked her student to analyze everything that had happened. As far as Fissel knows, Double Dragon Blade's Serena-san is right-handed. The frequency of attacks with the left hand was noticeably lower. Instead, Serena used it for feints and her right hand for finishing blows. That's why Beryl was targeting her left hand. In fact, it's amazing that this man managed to find a gap under a hail of such frantic blows. Speaking of which, Fissel wondered why Madam Commander had put on this performance. Was it just for fun? Exhaling irritably, Lucy explained that it was because she didn't like it. Then a perplexed Fissel decided to clarify if the commander hates her teacher. But it isn't. Lucy believes that all those who have achieved such excellence must match it. After their battle, they talked for a while. Lady Diamond was very surprised that he was able to resist her magic with an ordinary sword. His skills were truly incredible. Despite her praise, Beryl said that if this were real, he wouldn't have been able to save Fissel. Lucy would have used her as a hostage and had no trouble finishing him off. After that, it began to seem to Lucy that this man was obsessed not with whether he won or lost, but rather with the fact that he couldn't accomplish anything. Letting a master like him idle is a waste of time and talent. He might spread his name as an instructor in Liberia, but it won't be enough. There are bound to be people somewhere who will need his abilities. His students and Lucy have to give him a helping hand to make him a very famous man. After listening to her commander, an irritated Fissel noticed one detail. Did she just say she was using her apprentice as a hostage? Meanwhile, Maigan was already ready to introduce his new companions to Beryl. Opening the door, the man entered the room and saw the three adventurers. It is with them that he will soon descend into the dungeon. Already on their way to the dungeon, sitting in the cart, Beryl's new comrades learned that he was the master of Landred. At the same time, Landred sneezed in a dojo somewhere in the middle of nowhere. The adventurers were surprised when Landred decided to retire. At least now they understood why he had made that decision. He used to teach the three of them before, and so they are honored to meet their teacher's sensei. The brown-haired guy immediately suggested to Beryl Udono that they visit him at the dojo together sometime. Beryl himself would be fine with it, but he's sure his father will chase him away again as soon as he sees him. By the way, he didn't expect to get along with all of them so quickly. Let's go back to the moment when Megan had to introduce him to his new teammates. The first of the three adventurers was a guy named Porta. He has a bronze rank and is the leader of the group. The green-haired girl's name is Nodley, and she's also bronze-ranked. The last adventurer, however, turned out to be of silver rank and introduced himself by the name of Salikats. These three had watched Serena and her master fight, and so it was an honor to meet both of them. Next, they talked about the unidentified monster. Unfortunately, they didn't have any records of it yet. The dungeon they'll be traveling to today is one of the places he can inhabit. It is very important for them not to be reckless. If they meet this monster, their task is to leave the dungeon as quickly as possible. The most valuable thing is their lives. And when Sandera inquired of the guildmaster's assistant where their destination was, Maigan said they would be heading to the southern region of the Azaramia forest. There they will have to explore Greenwatch Cave. Once at the entrance to the cave, Sandera explained to the rookie adventurers that she and Beryl Dono would walk behind them and keep an eye on them. The newcomers have to go through various difficulties on their own. Sandera and her master are only here to help them when needed. The chance of an unknown monster appearing remains, and so Beryl decided to take a selfie. He's different from his past self. No longer will he turn his back on the monsters and run away. Now he has to protect himself and these guys. While thinking about it, the man suddenly slipped. His bandmates asked if he was okay, to which the embarrassed sensei replied that he was fine. Turning to Salikats, the squad leader asked if he could feel anything. Extending his hand forward, the hooded guy looked at the glowing ring and said there was no one nearby. Beryl was interested in what that object on his finger was. Serena, in turn, told him that it was a gathering ring, a magical instrument that emitted light when living beings came together. Salikats is a detector. His role is to make walking through the dungeon safer by detecting monsters as early as possible. Porta and Nodley guard him. These are the basics of interaction in a group of three. While Serena was explaining it, Salikats warned everyone that there were many monsters ahead. It turned out to be goblins. And there are quite a few of them here, a whole haven of them. Hiding behind a rock with the others, Beryl asked what it was the goblins were doing there. Looking closer, he noticed that the monsters were eating their kin. They engage in cannibalism. Now the question arose as to what the band of adventurers should do next. Go the other way or enter the battle. The decision was made to destroy the monsters. Pulling out his throwing knives, Porta told Salikats to proceed as usual. In the next instant, a knife pierced the head of one of the goblins. Taking advantage of the surprise attack, the three rookie adventurers came out of hiding and pounced on the enemies. Noticing her sensei's worried face, Serena said that she understood how he felt. Whatever the case, they should handle it on their own. Well, his student is right. They have very good teamwork. Porta pulls all the enemies down on himself while being supported by Nadli. And if it happens that some monster suddenly comes out of ambush, Salikats will cover his comrades from the shadows. He's silver ranked, so he's a better judge of the situation than they are. It seemed impossible to find flaws in their tactics. However, during the battle, they still failed to keep track of one of the goblins lurking in ambush with a spear. Fortunately, their rear was covered by a black-ranked adventurer. Unfurling the sword tied to the rope, Sandera removed the danger. Goblins, though weak, are quite cunning. Sandera asked the newcomers to be extremely cautious next time and try to check out the terrain before the fight if possible. When the battle was over, the adventurers began trying to figure out what had happened here. Most likely, the goblins had resorted to cannibalism due to hunger. Serena Sundara asked Porta what he thought about it. The first thing the guy wondered was why the goblins didn't come out of the cave to look for food if they were literally starving to death. Most likely they were afraid of something. Perhaps a monster appeared near the dungeon and started killing the goblins. Beryl was amazed that this boy could come to such a conclusion simply by watching the goblins. Adventurers are truly incredible. This place could be extremely dangerous. For today, the group decided to finish their investigation and report back to the guild. Looking at her comrades, Beryl asked the apprentice what she thought of them. Serena replied that all of them, and Porta in particular, had done well. He reasoned well and made sound decisions, which were excellent qualities for a leader. The girl then asked a counter-question to the sensei. Beryl said that he thought they had great teamwork and also fought well. And on top of all that, they didn't hesitate to kill monsters. If they hesitated for even a second, some of them might get hurt. They are clearly much better than Beryl was in their years. Meanwhile, Nodley noticed something. The squad leader hurt his hand. Porta tried to talk himself out of it, saying it was just a wound, but Nodley screamed that you can't treat injuries like that and asked him to give her his hand. After apologizing to the girl, Porta thanked her for always helping him. Nodley in turn reminded him that it was, on the contrary, she who always needed his help. This conversation was observed by Beryl. He was about to ask something to the Salikats sitting next to him, but the latter read his mind and confirmed that these two always acted like this. They can't admit it to each other, but it has long been obvious to everyone that they are lovebirds in love. Suddenly, Sandera interrupted their conversation by shouting out, "Hey!" Salikats apologized and promised not to talk about it again, but the girl said it was okay, and she just wanted to listen too. Porta had a little too much to drink last night, and this is what he said to Salikats. Adventurers have a saying, "Going underground is a guy's first step to becoming a man." Beryl liked that phrase. Those are pretty good words. Serena in turn couldn't stand this guy's hard-headedness, and offered to help her comrades help the two get closer when they finished the task. By the way, Salikats was very surprised at Serena-san's behavior. He didn't think she was interested in such topics of conversation. It's time to leave the cave. On his way to the exit, Porta caught Serena's strange look every time, and when he asked her if anything was wrong, he would answer no, and advise her to keep her guard up and keep moving toward the exit. Soon the band of adventurers found themselves outside the dungeon. Salikats and Nodley confirmed that there were no monsters in the vicinity, and Porta suggested getting out of this forest quickly. At first, Beryl thought everything was fine too. Suddenly, with his side vision, he saw something strange in the depths of the forest. Turning his head, he found no one. Noticing her teacher's wary look, Serena asked what was wrong. The man warned that something was wrong here. However, Salikats's ring showed no reaction. It was only for a moment that Beryl noticed a huge shadow. But if it was a monster, it wouldn't be able to move so fast near the trees. At the same moment, the shadow appeared again, but this time over their heads. The huge creature flew towards the adventurers at high speed. Beryl immediately shouted a warning to his comrades about the danger from above. The newcomers had no chance to react to such a sudden attack. Porta ran up to Nodley and yelled for her to get down. At the same time, Serena, who ran up to him from behind, grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and tried to pull him away. But she didn't have time. The monster missed Nodley, who had fallen to her knees, and slammed into Porta at full speed. From such a powerful blow, the guy flew a great distance away, hitting the ground several times. Raising her head, a startled Nodley saw the squad leader lying motionless dozens of meters away from her. The monster struck the boy with its claws in the neck area. Meanwhile, the creature had already landed nearby. The head of an eagle and the torso of a lion. It was undoubtedly a griffin. Suren immediately ordered everyone to freeze. This is a very dangerous monster. In the past, there was a griffin that even the guild couldn't destroy. Named by a special distressed individual, Abnormal Grey Sun. Named. Among the many types of monsters, there are special specimens that are difficult or impossible to destroy. The guild has given names to such monsters and called for special vigilance towards them. They are considered more natural disasters than living beings. Cases of killing named ones are extremely rare. A special distressed individual is a griffin named Abnormal Gray Sun. Now such a powerful being stands before Beryl and his squad. Porta still hasn't moved since the hit. Is he even alive? Beryl's main concern now was to help him. But Serena reacted faster, rushing towards the griffin. She did a slide tackle, slipping between the monster's legs. Soon she was beside the body of a wounded comrade. Porta was still breathing. The wound was very deep. He needs medical attention as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the griffin was already ready to pounce on Serena, as suddenly, the creature felt an inexplicable pressure, as if someone was trying to restrain its movements with tentacles. Jumping aside, the monster saw the man cutting the air where it had just stood. If this Beryl's attack had hit the target, perhaps the battle would have already ended. Keeping his eyes on his opponent, Beryl asked Surin to help the injured boy. Please. He spoke confidently without looking at the disciple. There was no other choice. Serena had to trust Sensei and leave this horrible creature to him. Placing Porta on her shoulders, the girl ordered Nadli and Salikats to follow her lead. Running away from the battlefield, Serena only muttered annoyedly, "Damn it." At the same moment, the monster went to attack Beryl. As the griffon drew closer to the enemy, it let mana in the form of fire through its feathers. In the very next second, he had already released all the magical energy outward. While flying towards Beryl, powerful streams of flame burned everything in path. Some monsters have magical power, though people with mana are even less so. Despite this, not every individual is capable of using magic. This was something Beryl had warned Lucy about before he even set out on this trek. Using the thick tree trunk as a shield, he survived this attack and immediately rushed to counterattack. Quickly reducing the distance with his enemy, he swung his sword. In the same instant, the griffin's body grew so hot that the bright light literally began to blind Beryl. Under the influence of such a high temperature, the man's blade melted before his eyes. Sensei jumped aside and dodged another fire attack from the monster. His body temperature is so huge that it can melt a sword. How does Beryl overpower such an incredible force? Well, since the sword was now broken, it would be difficult for Beryl to seriously injure the enemy. But he can't run away either. If he does, the monster might fly after Serena and the others. In that case, he has no choice but to defeat the griffin or die in battle. Serena and the newcomers had already managed to move to a safe distance. Ordering Nadli and Salikats to attend to her comrade's treatment, then ride faster to the neighboring village, the girl ran back to the battlefield. Taking out a special potion, she healed on the run. The wound on her arm left by the griffon as she tried to drag Porta away. Serena couldn't forgive herself for being such a loser. She had put the teacher in mortal danger. Sensei was able to spot the monster before her, and was also left alone to protect his comrades. If only she could react as quickly, she would be able to protect Port, and then she and her teacher could defeat that griffon. Is she back to being the one being protected? And then bang! Sudden flashback. 20 years ago, little Serena is riding in a cart with her parents. Turning around, the father asked his daughter if she was tired, to which she replied that she was fine. They had to reach the next town before sunset. The unsuspecting Serena had just made herself a wreath when suddenly a shout was heard. "What the hell?" There was an enemy attack and the cart began to overturn. Pulling his wife against him, father reached his hand toward the frightened Serena to try to grab her. The girl tried to grab onto her father. Just as suddenly, she noticed that all that was left of him was a severed arm. Eventually, the cart, along with the horses and Serena, fell down a huge cliff. The girl woke up to an unknown voice trying to wake her up. Sitting up on the bed, she looked around and found herself in a room unknown to her. A voice outside the door asked her mother to fetch hot water, alerting her that the girl was awake. When the unknown man entered the room, he asked Serena if she was okay and what her name was. He seemed scary to her at first, and so she turned away in horror and screamed. This behavior made Beryl realize that this girl had been through something traumatic, and so he decided to give her some time to recover. She never ate anything that day. Beryl had been trying to take care of her all day with hardly any rest. He didn't want to leave her alone. What if she woke up and there was no one there? That would scare her even more. Soon winter came and Serena got a fever. Her condition deteriorated badly, and at this rate she could have died without proper medical attention. Realizing that the doctor must still be in the village, Beryl got dressed and was about to run to him. But surely the doctor would agree to come in this weather? In her unconscious delirium, Serena wouldn't stop calling for Mom and Dad. She didn't want to be alone, as suddenly a calm and warm voice was heard. "It's okay." Upon regaining consciousness, the girl again found herself in an unknown room with strangers. The nurse informed her that she was in the hospital, after which she asked how she was feeling. Serena was about to scream, but then she felt someone's big warm hand on her arm. Turning her head, she saw the same man in soaked clothes sitting next to her bed. He was so tired he fell asleep as soon as he got here. As soon as she saw his face, the fear seemed to evaporate. Who is this hopeless man who won't leave her alone? In this heavy snowfall, he took her in his arms and ran away from home. Thanks to him, Serena was saved. When the girl recovered, she returned home with Beryl. From that day on, she began to trust her savior completely. Soon Beryl put the girl in good hands. Serena then promised that she would strive to stand up like this man. She wants to be the kind of person who would be willing to help anyone, even to people whose names he doesn't even know. Returning what was left of his sword to its scabbard, Beryl went to attack the formidable enemy. Pushing off the griffin's paw, he struck its eye with a sweep of his weapon. Blood rushed from the monster's eye. With a roar of pain, the creature grabbed the man's sword with its paw. After that, the two of them fell to the ground. The griffin was in an awkward position, which meant that Beryl had another chance to attack. Taking advantage of the monster holding his scabbard, the man took out what was left of his sword. With a swing, he plunged the blade into the griffin's other eye. But suddenly he felt some kind of burning sensation coming from the creature's muzzle. The hot fire melted the splintered sword and burned Beryl's fist along with it. Flames rushed from the eyes that the man had gouged out. Continuing to hold the scabbard, Beryl began to try to defend himself with it against the griffin's paws. But the monster proved to be much stronger physically. Pushing him against the tree, it began to gather all the mana in its throat. What kind of monster is that? It's lost its sight, but it's like it doesn't care. Well, Beryl is glad he was able to last this long. He's sure Serena and the others were able to escape. Even someone like him could be of some use. At the same time, Serena returned to the battlefield. Running to the spot, she saw her master lying pinned against a tree by a griffin. Hearing the cry of his disciple, Beryl looked at her. "Serena!" he shouted, stretching out his hand toward her. In just a moment, an eerie rumbling sound was heard and the smell of burnt wood filled the space. The griffin let out a burning fire from its beak. But somehow, inexplicably, Beryl cut off the monster's paw and managed to get out of the range of that attack in time. The creature roared again in unbearable pain. Beryl stood still for a while longer, trying to catch his breath. In his hand, he held the bloody sword that Serena had managed to toss to him at the last second. Gryphon uses heat armor, which is what melted Beryl's sword. However, this armor does not cover his entire body. It also drains him severely. Now he wouldn't be able to keep the flames at the same level as before. And the heat-resistant swords that Serena uses will allow you to strike his neck, lower body, and into his wings. The two of them together with these swords will be able to defeat the anomalous Grey Sun. After discussing a plan of action, Beryl and his apprentice threw themselves into battle against a powerful enemy. But just as they began to close the distance, the griffin flapped its wings, forming a semblance of a fiery prison around it. Fortunately, Beryl managed to break through to his opponent faster than he could activate this spell. Together with Serena, they wounded the enemy with lightning-fast lunges, cutting the muscles in its hind legs. Beryl was very surprised by his student's speed. She had just been behind him. Serena herself was also amazed by her teacher's skills. He had so easily realized what she wanted to do and attacked the same way. Unable to stand on the ground any longer, the monster flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Quickly turning around in the air, he once again gathered a huge amount of mana in his beak. Beryl guessed that the griffin was going to burn everything around it. Without hesitating for a second, the man hurled his sword at the enemy. It seemed like he missed the monster. However, he actually just wanted to return the weapon to its owner. Putting her hand up, Serena confidently grabbed the sword by the hilt. While in the air, she unwound one of the blades tied to the rope. With a deft movement, the girl pierced the monster's head. After that, using the rope to pull herself to it, she made a final slash with the second sword. The defeated enemy fell to the ground with a clatter. Serena lay on the dead griffin's soft body for a while longer. Looking at the cracked blade of one of her swords, she breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly remembering that this was no time to rest, the girl wanted to know if the teacher was injured. And then, turning her head, she saw Beryl at full speed running toward her. Grabbing the embarrassed Serena by the shoulders, the master began to ask if she was all right, and if her wounded arm hurt. Saying that she had already stopped the bleeding, the girl asked the teacher what was wrong with his arm. Not understanding what she meant, Beryl glanced at her left palm. Only now did it come to him how much it hurt. Apologizing to the student, the man wondered if she still had those potions with her. Asked to grant it to her, Serena promised to help the master. A few days later, the Adventurers' Guild building. Bowing his head, the bandaged Porta apologized to his saviors for causing trouble. Beryl only said that there was nothing wrong with it, and he was just glad the boy was able to survive. With his quick decision, he was able to save Nodley. He did a great job. Also, don't forget that he was attacked by a named monster and managed to survive. That's already a huge feat. In the middle of their conversation, Maigan entered the room and apologized for the intrusion. The assistant guildmaster asked the boy how he was feeling, to which he replied that his body was still a little sore, but he was feeling better. Bowing his head before the Gardenian Dono, Maigan said that he had heard that the man was able to single-handedly fight off the abnormal Grey Sun. For the tremendous effort made, he wanted to say thank you. However, to his surprise, Beryl said it wasn't to his credit. He should say thank you to everyone in his party. Beryl couldn't bring everyone back safely. He wanted to apologize for not being able to keep his promise. Maigan only lowered his gaze and remained silent. Serena, in turn, asked the master not to say that. At that moment, a worker ran into the room and asked Megan-sama to come down for a moment. Looking after the departing assistant guildmaster, Beryl asked what was going on. After saying goodbye to Sandera and her teacher, Maigan left the room and fixed his glasses with a chuckle. There were few people who could see him laughing. Even after standing up to the named one without losing a single man, he keeps apologizing? Is this definitely the son of Mordeo Gardnet everyone has been talking about? Thanks to him, chaos reigned in the guild. People were running from side to side and shouting about the need to urgently replenish rations. Everyone was talking about that griffin whose body Beryl and Sundara had left in the forest. Beryl couldn't understand why everyone was so excited. Then Serena told the teacher that in the guild, staff and supply of goods were important. When it comes to a corpse and a named monster, everyone is out to get it. Merchants, scientists, and mages alike. So there are a lot of people here now, and now the guild urgently needs to get them as many rations and horses as possible. And they also need to inform the other guilds about it as well. Destroying a named monster would be a high-profile event. Later, Beryl invited Surin to eat. The girl in turn told him to start without her because she had to change her clothes. While waiting for his order, Sensei thought about everything that had happened. He had never imagined that defeating the griffin would lead to such a complicated situation. Meanwhile, an elderly woman standing nearby shouted for everyone to stop idling and work harder. Walking over to the man at the table, she set the box next to him and told him to get busy too. Already changed, Serena came out of the room and saw the master for some reason carrying a heavy box somewhere. When the angry girl came up to him and asked what he was doing, Beryl decided to ask her if she knew where to put it. Then Serena yelled that it should be handled by the guild workers. Addressing the people, the girl reminded them that he was the one who killed the named monster, Abnormal Grey Sun, in the first place. He's not some lackey to them who has to do their job. Beryl in turn asked not to listen to this kid, explaining that she was the one who finished it off. Sitting up in bed, Porta called out to Salikats. He reminded him that since Landred Dono had always allowed others to appropriate his accomplishments, he had never been able to reach the rank of Ocean. Beryl Dono is very much like him. At first, Porta was afraid of this man. He is after all the one who was able to defeat Serena-sama. But after they were able to get to know him better, the guy realized that he was an incredibly kind person. As Porta was about to shake Beryl's hand, he turned his attention to his palm. At that moment, he wondered what kind of grueling training this man had undergone that his palms had become like this. But he was scared and couldn't ask him about it. Porto's original goal was fame and achievement. Now he realized how naive he had been. "Well, then I'll take your accomplishments for myself," Salikats promised understandingly. The angry Porto shouted to him not to dream about it. He's already a silver rank, what more does he need? At the same time, Serena had already started eating her well-deserved lunch. Of course, it was all mixed with good ale. Sitting at the same table with her, an excited Beryl asked if it was normal that they were the only ones resting. Serena in turn reminded her that they had finished their work. Besides, Sensei is the guest here in the first place. Beryl then decided to ask the student how things had gone since she left the dojo. The girl said that she had a good life, and her foster parents raised her well. However, she wants to apologize to her teacher for not visiting all of them in the dojo. It had been a whole 20 years. How long it had been. And even though she was busy, that didn't mean she wouldn't have time for Sensei. Serena was being selfish. But does it matter? Beryl muttered suddenly. He's just happy that Serena is eating well and staying healthy. She shouldn't waste her time on him. Instead, she can help someone else who needs it. Besides, if she wanted to, she could come to visit any time she wanted. Both Beryl's mother and father would be happy to see her. As soon as Beryl made that speech, Serena banged her head on the table. Looking at him, the girl said something to him again. As they chatted and laughed merrily, Maigan watched from the side. They looked like a real family now. A short while later, Capital Forge. Taking another swing of his hammer, the blacksmith greeted Serenu. The girl got straight to the point. She came here to ask Mr. Walder for a favor. When Beryl returned to the residence of the Order of Knights, he was met by Arliusia with puffed-up cheeks. Looking at her in horror, the man realized that she seemed to be angry with him. Or was she? On the way to the training room, the girl asked the teacher how his arm was. Beryl replied that it was much better, and he didn't think it would affect his training. Then Arliusia said she was informed that there were other wounded. When the master told her that Serena was among them, she was very surprised. Sensei explained that she had told him that it was nothing, and she was only lightly scratched. Sighing, Arliusia admitted that she wasn't worried about her at all. After all, she is a very stubborn girl. Looking at her student with a satisfied smile, Beryl was glad that the two were getting along well. The first time they met, they were like cat and dog. "I'm sure it's all because of Anomalous Grey Sun. He's the worst opponent for a swordsman. If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have gotten hurt. Arleusia shouted, abruptly speeding up her step. Beryl immediately guessed that she was angry because he was injured. Just recently, she had literally shaken the spirit out of Hembritz with excitement when she found out about it. Meanwhile, in the training room, tonight's opponent for Kaluni will be Evans Jean. More specifically, this is their fourth fight of the day. As soon as the fight started, Kaluni shortened her distance with her opponent as quickly as possible. She then delivered a lightning-fast side kick, hoping Evans wouldn't be able to keep up with her speed. However, the guy managed to block the punch. His comrades watching the fight couldn't stop marveling at Evans' skills. In terms of skill, he is about on a par with Hembritz. But Kaluni is also incredible. With such a small body, she has such tremendous strength. An opponent fighting her in close combat would not be envied. He simply won't have time to strike back. Evans can't fall into her trap right now. Making no attempt to counterattack, the guy continued to fall backward, dodging another attack. He swung his sword, knocking the girl's weapon aside and discouraging her with such a move. But Kaluni wasn't going to stop. Even though she lost her concentration for a while because of this defense maneuver, she could still continue to attack. Unfortunately, despite her determination, Evans once again dodged her slash, hitting her in the ribs with his wooden sword in return. The match is over. Evans has become a 4-time winner. After saying a few sharp words and annoying his opponent, the guy asked if her side was okay. Ignoring him, Kaluni immediately started doing 30 push-ups. Today she was as energetic as ever. This encouraged her comrades, and they too were ready to give their best. Just as Beryl entered the training room, he praised his apprentice for a good job. When the girl thanked the teacher for coaching her even today, Beryl asked if she was sure she was okay. Kaluni responded by saying that she was fine and just had some sore abs. But that's not what Sensei meant. He just thinks something's wrong with her. Today he got the feeling, like she was purposely trying to seem so energetic. Realizing that she had been exposed, Kaluni abruptly rose to her feet and rushed to run away. Beryl caught up with her to talk privately. As it turns out, Kaluni is bothered by the fact that she can't beat anyone lately. At first she didn't worry about it, but recently she had become saddened by that fact. Realizing the reason, Beryl decided to check with the girl as to why she thought she was losing. Lack of training? Kaluni blurted out uncertainly. In the next second, she accepted the fact that it was delusional on her own. Most likely everyone was just used to her fighting style. That's her real opinion. Her style is quite simple. She stays close to her opponent and waits for the moment to strike. However, if the opponent manages to keep her distance, she is unable to reach him with her sword due to her small stature. And when that happens, she can't see a way to win. Beryl was satisfied with that answer. She was aware of her weakness. That was the main thing. To solve this problem, Sensei advised the student to try to imagine herself in the enemy's shoes. She is strong at close range, so countermeasures are necessary. Every knight in the order knows of her power, but that doesn't mean she can afford to lose over and over again. In real combat, losing means death. All she needs to do is surpass her enemy. And to do that, she must realize what her opponent fears most in a fight with her. Rising to his feet, Beryl motioned for Kaluni to walk with him somewhere. Together they came to a small capital city forge. He realized from Kaluni's reaction that she had been here before. Beryl said he hadn't been here himself, but Serena had advised him to stop by this blacksmith any time to see if he could get a new sword to replace the one he had damaged. Laughing awkwardly, Kaluni nudged Sensei and suggested that they hurry inside. Once inside, Beryl saw a huge assortment of swords of incredible quality. "What did you say?" A fierce, rough male voice was heard. The man behind the counter loudly asked the customer if he needed dragon scales for his wife's medicine, but he didn't have the money to send a request to the guild. And in order to slay the dragon personally, he came here to ask for a sword for free? "You have indeed had such a hard ordeal." The blacksmith sobbed, unable to hold back his tears. Saying that he understood, the man promised to give the customer any weapon from his forge for free. With a deceitful smile of thanks to the blacksmith, the customer mentally laughed. The rumors about this dude weren't lying. He really is very gullible. At the same time, the girl waved to Uncle with a tragic story, and after explaining that she was from the knightly order, asked him to repeat exactly what his problem was. The man only tisked irritably. The blacksmith still couldn't understand for a while why the customer made a disgruntled expression and just walked away like that. "Walder, long time no see," Beryl said cheerfully. The blacksmith, seeing the new visitor, also recognized him at once. Walder was also very happy to see his teacher. It had been many years since their last meeting. The man can't believe that Sensei actually came to the capital. Walder Gaspu trained in the dojo with Fissel and Kuluni. He came to the dojo for a slightly strange purpose. He then told Beryl that in order to forge good swords, he needed to know what it was like to be a master swordsman. He didn't care if he practiced with the kids. Beryl still remembers the time he swung the practice ball around with the others. When the fake customer ran away, Kaluni explained to the blacksmith that he just wanted to get one of the swords for free and then sell it somewhere else. This pleased Walder, for it meant that the man had collected about his sick wife. It was good to have it all resolved. Looking at the student with a smile, Beryl realized that he hadn't changed. He had always been a very honest man. After looking over the assortment, the teacher noticed that there were a lot of good balls. Then his eye fell on a single specimen. Zweihander is a long two-handed sword. Surprised that his master was interested in this, Valder asked if he was going to change his sword. But what Beryl was really wondering was whether such a weapon would suit Kaluni. He must have come here to find a new sword for his apprentice. While still at the residence of the Order of Knights, Beryl told the girl about his plan. Their goal was to compensate for Kaluni's lack of height with a longer weapon. She was used to fighting with a one-handed sword, but Beryl was sure she could handle a two-handed sword as well. Except there was the question of whether the girl would be able to do her usual fighting because of the altered length of the weapon. Beryl in turn asked her not to worry. He had found the perfect sword for her. The blacksmith also agreed with the teacher. With her strength, Kaluni could certainly handle such a thing. But whether she could switch from a one-handed sword to a two-handed sword remained an open question. So Beryl suggested that we just try it. The spot Beryl now stood on was out of range of Kaluni and her current weapon. With the short sword she used, Kaluni's potential was not fully realized. A two-handed sword was a very drastic change for her. But in a situation like this, trying something like this was the most logical thing to do. Kaluni has to make her own choice first, and Beryl is confident that she will come to the right decision. Of course, he realizes that it's scary to choose a path that's completely different from the one you followed all your life. However, right now, she just had to think about what it could do for her. Taking the Zweihander in her hands, Kaluni looked it over tensely. After that, she placed her sword at the ready. This weapon was like a new breath of air for her. Now the place where Beryl stood appeared to be within Kaluni's reach. Excited by the new sensations, the girl began waving the Zweihander from side to side, thanking the teacher. When Valder finally calmed the girl down so she wouldn't trash the whole forge, Kaluni told Sensei admiringly that she thought she could handle this weapon. This pleased Beryl. Kaluni decided to buy the sword, but Valder said he would refine it a bit first. The blacksmith also had some other things left to do with the teacher. Serena came to see him recently and told him a lot of things. She began by saying that Beryl Dono refused to acknowledge his credit for killing the named monster, and complained that he also refused the reward, and so she had left Valder some gift, which he must now give to the teacher. The paw of the named monster, Abnormal Grey Sun. Using this thing and his skills, the blacksmith will create the best sword for his sensei. Back when they were still in the Adventurers Guild, Serena had shown the master her sword. Right before Beryl's eyes, almost all of the scratches from the blade disappeared. The girl told him that this sword was created from the fang of an immortal dragon, and also had a regeneration enchantment applied to it. Because of this, her weapon was able to heal most of its own damage almost instantly. Serena is good with weapons that have the ability of a monster. Therefore, she was curious about what kind of sword the Abnormal Grey Sun would make. Holding out his hand to her, Valder asked Kaluni to give him her palm. What followed was an incredible firm handshake. It was obvious that Kaluni was trying to squeeze the blacksmith's hand as hard as she could. Right now, she looked like a terrifyingly powerful bull. With that handshake, Valder estimated the limits of Kaluni's strength. Praising the muscular girl, the man remarked that she had gotten even stronger. She has small palms, and so she needs to be more careful when holding that sword. And based on the length of her arms, it was decided to shorten the blade. Valder also promised to try to lengthen the ricasso. Also, while shaking her hand, the blacksmith noticed that her side hurt. The knight's training is indeed too rigid. Beryl was amazed at the fact that this guy managed to notice even that. Valder-san is able to see a person's hidden abilities through a handshake. He is also able to match each customer with the right sword. Holding out a piece of paper to Kaluni, the blacksmith said that his work would cost exactly that much. The girl was surprised at the cheapness of this sword. That's also considering that Valder would customize it personally. Then the blacksmith explained that it was because this sword was only a prototype. He needs more time to make such blades much better. You could say he's only giving Kaluni a test piece right now, a Zweihander with a slightly shorter blade. Meanwhile, snatching the sheet from the student Beryl's hand, he couldn't understand how she could say it was cheap. Valder asked Kaluni to practice a bit with this sword, and let him know if anything else needed tweaking. After that, he decided to proceed with his teacher's order. Shifting his gaze to the sensei, the blacksmith asked if he would accept the Abnormal Grey Sun sword. He wouldn't have to worry about money since Serena had already paid for the job. To be fair, this is the first time Valder will be creating a sword from a named monster. Blacksmith had already started to contemplate what it would be like to make it, but Beryl stopped him, saying he couldn't accept it. Grabbing the teacher by the shoulders, Valder asked why he was saying that. It's a great offer after all. so why is he refusing? Beryl then explained that Serena was the one who killed that monster, and therefore he could not accept this reward. Such stubbornness on the part of his master made Walder weep. The boy began to beg Sensei to let him create a sword. Walder often thought of his teacher. The blacksmith had always been impressed with his skills. Once, when Walder first came to the dojo, a master chopped a training dummy in half before his eyes. The blacksmith asked Sensei for permission to look at his sword. No doubt the blade had been well cared for, but it was still cheap and of poor quality. The abnormal gray sun was so strong that it melted Beryl's sword with its flames. Therefore, Valder only asked the teacher to imagine that this monster's ability would become his own. With this, Beryl Gardnet could become even stronger. Kneeling before his teacher, Valder promised to forge him a blade that would be the stuff of legends in the future, and he wishes only that Beryl Dono would be the one to use the weapon. After such a fiery speech, Beryl had no choice but to agree. Kneeling down opposite his disciple, the man said he would accept this sword. He would do everything in his power to use it properly. "That's good," Valder said cheerfully, holding out his hand to the master to help him up. Beryl grabbed his palm and squeezed it tightly. Suddenly, the blacksmith felt a terrifying pressure coming from his teacher. It felt like he was shaking hands with the world's strongest monster. Noticing the strange expression on the student's face, Beryl brought him to his senses. After saying goodbye to his teacher, Valder promised that when they came for Kaluni's sword, the sensei's weapon would also be completed. Left to himself in the forge, the boy exhaled. Thanks to him, his teacher could become even stronger. To do so, he must create a sword. That will be worthy of this Leviathan. A few days later, Beryl came to the residence of the Order of Knights. There he was given his monthly salary. As the man expected, there was too much money. Earlier, Arliusia had told the teacher the amount of money that instructors are usually paid. Unfortunately, since her sensei refused to accept such a lot of money, they had to reduce the amount a bit. Despite this, he was still given quite a bit of money, and so walking down the street with such an envelope is a bit scary for Beryl. However, even so, this amount of money would definitely not be enough to create the anomalous Grey Sun sword. Beryl could hardly compare to someone like Serena, who could easily spend that much money on someone else. Turning down an alley, Beryl decided that going down a less crowded street would be safer for him. At least it'll make it easier for him to keep track of the money. It's been a few minutes. Feeling through his clothes for the fourth time, Beryl again made sure he still had the envelope on him. He's never had that amount of money before, and so there's no way he can settle down. Absorbed in his thoughts, the man accidentally bumped into a low-hooded stranger. He was about to start apologizing, but suddenly he noticed something wrong. Grabbing the stranger's wrist, Beryl told him to take his time like this. In the person's hand, he saw his envelope with money. Beryl immediately realized that he had encountered a pickpocket. While he was thinking about it, the hooded man abruptly pulled out a folding knife. The stranger had already thought he had succeeded in piercing his victim's liver, but looking at his hand, the pickpocket found that it had disappeared. As it turned out, with one deft move, Beryl had no trouble disarming the criminal. Throwing the knife away, Beryl smiled and said that this money was very important to him, and therefore he would like the pickpocket to return it to him. After his words, the perpetrator let go of the envelope. Taking advantage of the man's distraction, the hooded stranger concentrated fire magic in his grasped hand. Using a flame blast, the pickpocket forced Beryl to let go of his wrist. After that, the perpetrator hurriedly ran away as soon as possible. Beryl was struck by the fact that this stranger knew how to use magic. Why would such a person go down the path of stealing? Well, it didn't matter now. Thanking the goodness, Beryl picked up the envelope from the ground, and looking at it with relief, put it behind his groove. At the same moment on the ground, he saw some broken rope with a pendant tied to it. Finally running a decent distance away from the scene, the pickpocket began trying to catch his breath. Approaching the door of one of the houses, he knocked. The door was opened for him by a menacing bald man. When the hooded stranger stepped inside, her comrades greeted Mui and praised her for her good work. Walking over to the table, the pickpocket dumped today's quota on it. Noticing that there was too little here, the man in the bandana suspected that the girl might have pocketed some of it for herself. However, after removing her hood, Muyue said that there was no need for her to do so. Instead of pointless suspicion, she advised the jerk to do a good count of the money she'd brought. Noticing that his bandana-clad charge was clearly not happy about the girl's insolence, the huge man with dreadlocks approached him and asked him not to get so angry at the kid. As it turns out, this dude is the boss of the place. Looking at the girl, the bulky man snapped his fingers. At the same moment, the money on the table began to float in the air. After carefully counting the bills and coins, the boss noticed that there was indeed a lot less here. Did something happen to Muyi on the way? The girl replied that nothing much had happened, but admitted that she had just messed up a little. The boss noted that he hadn't expected that from her. More importantly, he decided to ask the girl if she had used magic. When Muyi answered in the negative, the boss asked her to remember that if anyone saw her using magic, she would be immediately captured and sold into slavery. Saying that she had heard this many times before, the the girl asked how much she had left to give. In response, the boss narrated that she had 5 million more darks to collect and still had a long way to go, but he believes she can get them back very quickly, and then she will finally come home. At the same time, the girl noticed it was missing. As she searched herself from head to toe, the boss inquired what was wrong. Unable to hold back her tears, Mui screamed that she had lost her pendant. In the meantime, holding the ragged rope with the pendant on it, Beryl stared at it with a thoughtful expression. This item he took with him. The next day, when training was over, Alyosha approached Sensei and praised him for his good work today. Seeing the student, Beryl noticed that she hadn't entered the training room in a while. The girl in turn inquired how Kaluni was doing. As it turned out, she was doing better than ever. She's just getting used to the two-handed sword right now, but once she wields it, she'll be much stronger. That's when Alyosha had a brilliant idea. If she changed her sword, would her teacher also teach her something new? However, the girl dismissed such a thought. She can't throw away the sword her master gave her. Meanwhile, Beryl asked Hembritz what he thought of it. If he noticed any flaws or oddities, the teacher asked him to tell him. The thing was, it seemed to Beryl that the boy was worried about Kaluni when she was feeling down. In response, Hembritz said he was just watching her. One time he saw her feeling depressed after a failed mission. And of course he wasn't the only one who noticed. Because that day the ever-cheerful Kaluni had been so quiet. Everyone began to worry about her. Kaluni, seeing this, walked up to them and said, "I'm sorry for making you worry." But Hembritz could see that she was having a very hard time. It was as if she thought everyone was saying she was useless. Hearing this story, Beryl felt relieved. He was relieved that so many people cared about Kaluni. One day she told him that she wanted to become the kind of knight that would bring a smile to everyone's face. And Alyosha has confirmed that she is capable of it. After all, just by being around the knights, they are constantly smiling thanks to her. And Hembritz was asked by the commander to continue to keep an eye on Kaluni. Plus, changing weapons because you keep losing is a pretty drastic decision. I'm sure she's going through a very difficult time. When Hembritz returned to training, Beryl asked Alyosha for a moment of her time. Showing her the pendant, he said he wanted to fix it. Looking enviously at the bracelet recently given to Sensei by Fils, Alyosha wondered if it was another gift from someone. Saying that it wasn't, Beryl narrated that in fact something had happened to him. In the meantime, the thief continued to search for her lost pendant. Looking around the place where she had run into that middle-aged guy, Mui panicked. She was sure she'd dropped the pendant around here somewhere. "Did you drop something?" A man's voice came from behind her back. Turning around, the pickpocket shouted to the stranger to get the hell out of here and mind his own business somewhere else. That's when she saw the man in front of her. The man you wanted to rob last night. Quickly realizing why he had come here, the girl abruptly tore away while Beryl shouted for her to wait. When the man did catch up to her and grabbed her wrist, Mui started screaming that he was a pervert and a molester. Yelling for her to stop it, Beryl asked to at least listen to him for starters. All he wanted was to give her back that pendant. At the same time, the city guards approached them. Grabbing the suspicious man by the arms, the guard ordered him to move away from this child now. As they dragged him away, Beryl tried to explain to them that they had gotten it all wrong, and he just wanted to give her her thing. Looking at this picture, Muyue realized that right now she could just run away quietly, but something was stopping her. "What's going on here?" A familiar female voice suddenly sounded. Turning her attention to the two girls who approached, Beryl recognized one of them as Fissel. Fiss herself clearly hadn't expected to see her teacher in a face-down position. When word reached the guards that they had captured the night instructor, they immediately apologized. While Beryl, scratching the back of his head, thanked Fissel, her friend standing next to her was surprised that the Fiss teacher looked so ordinary. Turning her head, Fissel asked the master what kind of child it was. That's when he told her she had magical powers. South Valtrain County, headquarters of the Magic Division. Looking thoughtfully at the stranger, Lucy Diamond said she understood. The first thing she asked was to give Moy a proper bath. Within a couple minutes, Fissel and her friend were already dousing the girl with hot water without her consent. Moy screamed to be let go, but she had no chance to break free herself because Lucy had cast an immobilizing spell on her. "Are you cold?" Fissel asked warmly as she drew another tub of water. The phrase reminded Muya of her sister. Unable to resist, the girl sobbed. Fissel, in turn, not realizing what she had done wrong, asked her friend if she had said something hurtful. Meanwhile, Lucy never stopped marveling at this girl's bravery. Was she really trying to steal a purse from the knight's instructor? Walking down the hallway with her, Beryl apologized for putting all his problems on her. Lucy said there was nothing wrong with that. She's attracted to people with good potential. However, it seems to her that this girl has plenty of problems of her own. Alyosha recently told her teacher that a thief who uses magic is quite unusual. After all, usually if a child gifted with magic is born in the kingdom of Liberis, they are often brought into the upper classes with their family. Thereafter, they are held in high esteem. But even still, this girl probably has a reason why she started stealing. Sitting at the same table as her, Lucy told her she could eat it all. She also told her not to worry about the food being poisoned. The Magic Division commander introduced herself by her name and asked the girl what her name was. She told me that her name was Mui Freya. Turning to the topic of conversation, Lucy suggested that the girl stay at her house. She would be able to safely enter a magical academy, even if she didn't have a penny to her name. She could live on the scholarship provided by the government, and of course it would be given to her family as well. Entering the academy will improve the girl's magical power, and she will also be able to help other people as well. That way she'll never have to steal again. Suddenly, in the middle of this conversation, Muyue started coughing. Concerned, Lucy ran up to her and asked what was wrong. The commander asked the girl to calm down and let her look at her. At that same moment, Beryl realized what Moy was trying to accomplish. Grabbing a table knife, the girl held it to Lucy's throat and ordered no one to move. If any of them even moved from their seats or thought of using magic, Muyi would slit her throat immediately. This kind of treatment of her commander made Fissel incredibly angry. She was about to draw her sword, but Lucy managed to stop her with a single gesture. First of all, Muyi asked the hostage if she could use magic. Receiving an affirmative answer, the girl cried out in that case to take her to the one who knows how to revive the dead. Such a wish threw everyone present into a stupor. Looking at her, Lucy decided to clarify what she meant. Moy in turn explained that she wanted to bring her sister back from the other side of the world. Unfortunately for her, the commander told her that such magic does not exist. She realizes it's sad, but she can't do it. Then, squeezing her throat even tighter, Muyue screamed at her not to dare say that. What could a spoiled brat like her understand? Since they don't have such a person, the girl ordered them to bring her all the money they have. "Who makes you do that?" Lucy Diamond muttered coldly. Just listening to her, you can tell that someone ordered her to do it. There is a special magic that can bring a person back to life, but it requires a lot of money. Who told her that? She's a complete fool to believe such a thing. An angry Mui, without letting her hostage finish speaking, ordered her to shut up. She had heard that the Magic Division was capturing people and selling them into slavery. Did they really think they could trick her by just giving her food and a bath? They are even much worse than those who can't do anything about it. She only has 5 million darks left to accumulate. She would soon be able to see her sister again. While she was screaming this, Lucy grabbed her arm and slit her own throat. Grabbing a table knife, the commander explained that all the girl could do with the thing was scratch her neck slightly. Plus, as she can see thanks to Lucy, there is magic that can heal bodily wounds. However, since time immemorial, many mages have tried to create a spell that could raise the dead. But of course, no one has ever been able to achieve it. Magic Division Commander Lucy Diamond can assure anyone that there is no magic in this world she doesn't know about. So no doubt that person had been blatantly lying to Muyue all this time. "Lucy, is it true that such magic doesn't exist?" muttered Beryl suddenly quietly. To this, the commander replied that this was a fact. For Fissel, it was the first time. She had ever seen a teacher so angry. Beryl silently walked over to Moy lying on the floor. Then, holding out the pendant to her, he guessed that it must have belonged to her sister. The man smiled sadly and said he was sorry it had taken so long to get it back to her. Taking the object in her hands in tears, Moy told her that her sister had always worn this pendant. She said it belonged to their mother. But one day that man came to her and held the pendant in his hand. He told Moy that her sister had died. Beryl asked the girl where her sister might be, to which the girl, bursting into tears, shouted that she didn't know. In that case, the man offered to look for her together. This behavior seemed suspicious to the girl. She asked him what he wanted in return. However, Beryl replied that he didn't need anything. He just wanted to help her. She can be anything she wants to be, so why should she limit herself to anything? At the same moment, placing her hands on Beryl's head, Lucy noticed that he made a fearful face again. The commander then inquired where the guy she was giving her money to was. The girl, in turn, asked incredulously why she wanted to know. He is called Twilight. He can use different kinds of magic, and he has his own wards. There's no way they can beat a man like that. Despite Moy's warnings, Lucy promised that everything would be fine, and they would just have a little chat with him, and Beryl will go with her. Looking at her gorgeous teachers, Fissel couldn't believe this was happening before her eyes. Who would have thought these two would team up? At the same time, one of the henchmen asked the boss why he was even tricking this little girl. Gramila explained that he just wanted to have a little fun. If they used her magic correctly, they could make quite a bit of money. Besides, she never disobeys him. She trusts him. Well, at least she'll do it until she's collected 5 million darks. And when the underling asked what was wrong with her sister, the boss just waved his hand and said he didn't care. It's always been useless, so it's easier to just forget about it. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. "Is that you, Mui?" the bald, muscular man clarified before opening the door.